Did you know that 100 out of 100 people are suffering with subscriber phobia? So if you hit the subscribe button, you're cured! I've started recording every Mythic Plus key this season, and in these episodes I'll go over the ups and downs of my journey towards getting that juicy sought after 0.1% title. Starting off, we have a 26 fall again, just like the start of the previous episode. It's not the same footage, I swear. I really need this key done on Tyrannical. I've only got it done on a 24, so once I've timed this, all my keys will be above 25 on both Fortified and Tyrannical, which to me is pretty awesome. Right, enough blabbling. We had a sneaky rogue in the party, so we shrouded past the start, and pulled the 2 rippers at the top of the ramp down into the pack before the first boss, and then we just fully sent everything into the boss, so quite nice for us. We got funnel like we discussed last time, but it is a semi-sketchy pull because we do have 4 rippers and they may end up Beyblading on all of us. We do end up getting the training dummy down, and your boy may not have been top damage and everything, but we were pumping on the boss, and I'll take any win in any form. I did mention this last week, but if you do pull the right hand side like we do here, save your Primwave or your CDs for like 5 or so seconds, and then you'll line it up perfectly when the portal ads spawn. So, chef's kiss decision making right there. And then we get some extra pad. In this area, playing Enhancement and Shaman in general, I just try my best to survive, honestly, with all the debuffs coming out. I'm looking at you, Tainted Sands. Honestly, it is a rough situation for us, and I do hope we see some changes in the future, possibly next season or the expansion afterwards, of maybe giving us another defensive, but that's a bigger discussion for another time. We do drop low a few times here, but we did have a Giga Chad healer, and with some well played defensive usage by us, we didn't have a singular death clearing out this whole area before time waste, which is pretty impressive honestly. I've never had that happen in a pug group before, so it was a world first spectacle for me. Timeways was really chill, and I did not expect that from this boss going with how my previous balls normally go. This is normally the gatekeeper of Rio. We did get a death from the rogue as he did move slightly as his debuff ran out, so take this as a lesson folks. Plant those toesies when it's about to fall off. Look at your boy at number 1, sheesh. I'm highlighting this because after we skip the big dragon boy in the middle, it's the dragon pulls with all the little ones as well. And do you think I'm going to keep up with Mr. Divine Stormidin? No, I am not. One thing I have started trying to do in these packs specifically is I try to get 5 wolves out and then I save my last stack of elemental blast, so we can send an absolute nuke into the dragon and pray to RNGesus that it crits. Sometimes it works, other times it doesn't and it falls flat. But as always, we are just playing the funnel homie. This boss is super Monka-S honestly, especially if you're playing triple melee DPS. So many times people just accidentally run into each other with the corrosive debuff and just take each other out. We had 3 deaths on this boss to that exact thing. If I know the tank hasn't swapped the buff as well, and he's about to get MC'd if he doesn't swap it to someone, I try to save my Astral Shift and then I'll just quickly take the corrosive orb from him and then pass it back, because if we don't use a defensive, we just get one shot. I did leave it mostly to the other classes just to swap the corrosive buff for the tank because they've got way better defensives and survivability because they stack verse. We end up losing the rogue because the paladin passed corrosive to him. We then lose the paladin to breath, and I think the tank passing corrosive to him as well. Still had bubble as well, mind you, so I guess he's saving it for next dungeon. But thankfully, your boy was cranking DPS and we got lucky with hardly any corrosive debuffs going on me. And we downed the boss as a 3-man. Now, I know the second boss gives people a run for their money, but this guy, after pushing higher keys, is actually so ruthless. The whole fight is just hard hitting damage going out all the time. I do really feel sorry for healers. If you survive the soak, then you have to survive the earth surges. And something which kept happening in the dungeons I was doing in fall was we were either facing him to Extinction Blast, which is the last phase after pushing his health down to 90% or 89%. Can't remember which number it is. We either pushed it to that phase either just after the soak or just after breaking the shield from the surge. So what I think happens is people use their defensives and abilities and cooldowns to survive the soak and the surge, and then once the Extinction Blast AoE starts pumping out, you end up just rotting down because that stuff hurts really badly. You need some form of defensive or cooldown for the Extinction Blast. I think we were around 3 to 5% breaking the shield anyway, but the damage was just too much, so we do in fact deplete. Just as a pre-warning, and I probably should have said this at the start, this week was pretty rough in overall Rio gains. So with that announcement, we ran with the same group as last time as the fall, as for the most part that key was pretty smooth until the end. And we head straight into a 26 Darkheart thicket. Standard first pull with the Bloodlust, and I focused on the big bear. The next pull, the tank tried to do some LOS shenanigans, but as there's so many casters, I think there's 4, and the spot he was in was very obviously not LOS, it kind of just became a fiesta and we end up losing the rogue, and then I think the priest, but we do finish the pull eventually. We end up doing this double skip shenanigans, which I hadn't actually done before, where I invis, but I think you can run along the wall to the right and hug it, and then get past anyways. And then we do rogue things and skip the double bear pack to the first boss. First boss was definitely a roller coaster of emotions. We started off great, and then we lost the rogue to Primal Rampage, and then the healer to a dot of the ad, and then the leap on top of it, so that finished him off. Then I end up going down as we're kind of like in this boxed in area, and then because the camera angle is awful, I end up just getting leaped on when the boss goes back to the tank and get cleaved, which is my bad, but thankfully the warrior does end up finishing the boss on his own. I ended up completely clowning in this part. You can judge me to the full extent of the lore, and I deserve it. I deserve a big, fat, guilty hammer. I was reading chat, and we end up talking about a talent. Can't remember the exact discussion, but whilst I looked at the talents, I saw a little glimpse of Shroud on the bottom of my talent screen. I end up not being fast enough to get in and die. A mega lol streamer depleting keys. I learnt my lesson, okay? To redeem myself, I gave Oakheart the fattest amount of funnel damage he had ever seen. And we also slapped up the Nightmare Dragon. And we only lost a priest right at the end. We have about 6 minutes left after that boss, and only the last trash before Xavius and then Xavius himself. So the timer is looking pretty tight. We do end up clearing the trash, and then we have about 3 minutes and 30 on the timer to kill Xavius, so it's not looking too hot. We end up losing the healer in phase 1, and then we have a couple more deaths in phase 2, but ultimately we just didn't have enough damage to make up the time. It was looking really rough, and the boss is just rough in general, and then we end up going over by 25 seconds on the timer. A couple of deaths could have been avoided earlier in the dungeon, but you know, it is what it is. We move on. I end up leaving that 4-man group, say my GGs, and then I go into Brave myself back into the LFG simulator. We get into a group for a 27 Blackrock hold, so one of the easier 27 keys on the market if all goes well, of course. Do Bloodlust on the first pull, and your boy does pretty good damage. Did not expect to beat out the Rep Paladin. I end up taking Stone Skin Totem for this dungeon, as it's got multiple uses throughout. A few examples is the Glaive Toss on the mini boss here, and then later on you have the Bleed on the second boss, and then Earth Shaking Stomp on the third, so would recommend to do it on Tyrannical, definitely will help out your team. Training Dummy boss does go down, but in the intermission, somehow the boss gets 2 stacks of the ads coming in, and I'd already used my defensive on something, not really sure what. So when that boy cast Soul Burst, it hit like a mother effing truck, did 1.5 million, took me and someone else out. Thankfully I had Reincarn and we finished the boss. This area was made pretty spicy this week because of one affix in particular, raging. So as you may know or not, the scouts and archers have casts which need to be CC'd like Arrow Barrage and Knife Dance. These casts alone can cause wipes normally, and with how raging works now, they become immune to CC at 30% HP. So how can you stop those casts? You cannot, unless you soothe them and then use CC afterwards. So because of that combo, we end up losing a few people to the casts, but we push through, and then we also take out Ravencrest as well. We start clearing the Gremlin area where we picked up a few deaths, unfortunately. I end up dying to a spinny boy, and at this key level, it just one-shots you. Thankfully, we have a Rat Paladin doing Rat Paladin things in this area, so he's just bringing fat stacks of damage just to clear it out for us quicker. We do end up racking a few more deaths as well. Two of the little gremlins drink their happy juice and then just start casting indigestion. And it looks like the tank has it facing towards us, which I'm pretty sure is what happened, but it may have been an awkward spot for him to try turn it because it's kind of like melded into the boxes. Who knows? After a couple of more corpse runs by the party, we go to invis up the stairs to the top level and then just pull everything into the third boss room. And guess what? Your boy forgot to hold his pot CD. Thankfully though, we had a rogue to shrap me past. I end up doing one mistake here. I pop P-Wave early and then I hold the buff for when they're stacked around the corner, just so I can get an extra P-Wave out. Do I manage to press it in time? No, I was about 0.2 seconds off. We end up blasting down the ogre dude pretty easily, and your boy was top down. We cleared the stairs and Jumpy Boy's no issue, and then moved on to the last boss where we bloodlusted phase 1. And you're going to see how hard this Shadow Bolt hits. It nearly takes myself and the druid out in one shot. So I can imagine on 28, the druid would have died straight from the rip. Phase 2 though was pretty smooth, and we get him down. But we are missing less than 1% trash count. So we quickly zoomed over and killed something. And then that gave us a nice little +4 points to time another 27 key. Did lose out to the Paladin though on overall. I'll beat him next time. I did mention earlier that I really needed to time a fall, and I was not giving up. So I went straight back into a 25. All goes smoothly with 0 deaths up until the second boss. We end up getting 3 deaths there. The druid dies once to the orbs, and then again to the AoE from the dispels. And then the shaman dies to the orbs right at the last second, but I'm pretty sure he thought the boss was going to despawn the orbs after it died. Third boss goes down with only 1 death coming from that fight as well. And now to the gatekeeper of all my 4 keys, Averageteadrinker. And we wipe as the healer gets clipped by the Earth Surge and we can't continue the fight. So as we have 9 minutes-ish for another attempt, we try again. But sometimes you feel like you're in the movie Groundhog Day, where you're forced to repeat the same day and the same events over and over again. So the healer dies again, and that's the key done. I do apologise, but here is another 4 key. Once I get something in my mind, I kind of just want to see it done. Sadly though, in Mythic Plus, everyone makes mistakes and you end up playing with 4 other people who can do that exact same thing as well. So keep that in mind. We do Shroud into a Bloodlust first pull with the first boss, get that done, no deaths there. And then moving on to this area where it wasn't as smooth as our previous 4 keys, I end up going down to a Chrono Burst, and then we also have our healer go down to the Temporal Detonation from the Smallies. Question mark? Don't think I've ever seen someone die to that ability, I'm not gonna lie. Then for time ways, our paladin in the party asked us to get this weak aura here, which sorts out a list for the dispels, so you can min-max the damage going out. So say if you are a second dispel in the list, you can just chill in the slow zone and then move into the fast zone to drop off the dispel. So in practice, it makes sense. Our monk did not say anything though after getting the ready check to see if we all had the weak aura, which was quite worrying, and that worrying was confirmed later in the fight. But first, we end up losing the rogue to the orbs. Not sure what is going on in my keys this week, but people were showcasing their obsession with spheres this week. Then the dispels get messed up because I'm pretty sure the healer didn't grab the weak aura, which they don't have to if they don't want to. But then disaster strikes. Me and the monk end up getting the dispels, And I'm first to be dispelled, so I'm kind of just waiting in the fast zone, and I'm waiting and waiting. And the monk is right next to me, and the monk ends up dispelling himself, not even in the fast zone, but in the slow zone, which ends up killing me as we're stacked on top of each other, and we wipe. But thankfully we go again, and we do end up killing the boss. Now, the third boss, Blight of Galakrond. Honestly, it was a shit show. With having this many melee and people who like to play their characters with ADHD in game, it just becomes a disaster. The rogue and the ret paladin just end up playing hot potato with the corrosive debuff with each other a few times. So you can imagine what happens. The rogue ends up going down, and then the paladin hits him with the rogue question mark 1-2 combo. And then a little taste of the paladin's own medicine later in the fight, after playing hot potato with the rogue again, the paladin goes down. Now, what do you think the rogue is going to say to the paladin? That is correct. Paladin question mark. That does basically spell the end of the dungeon though, and I'm not going to lie, I was pretty tilted. I just don't understand why people run around as much as they do on this fight with the corrosive debuff. It's just going to one-shot you if you accidentally run on top of someone. And then, just to make it worse, you're hitting people with question marks and typing in the middle of a fight, and all that's going to do is just tilt the other person. So yeah, it was pretty tilting to end the dungeon like that. Right, this is the straw which broke the camel's back, as the saying goes. But I wholeheartedly apologize again, and I promise you, this is the last 4 key you will see in this episode. Mark my words, you can hold me accountable, you won't see another one in this episode. And anyways, it was a short run. This key sent me over the edge and completely broke my will for trying to get a higher than a 24 done on Tyrannical. I guess I'm just stuck with a 24 now. So, standard shroud skip into the pack before first boss, and then we pulled the boss with the pack. If the mobs live long enough, we normally climb our way back onto the meter, and we actually managed to end the boss fight on top damage and top boss damage, so win-win there. So now for time ways. Where do I start? Well, we lose the paladin to the orbs going out. Shocker. The dispels go out, one's on the monk, the other on the rogue. The monk dispels himself with diffused magic and drops a big old fat slow zone because he was in the wrong place. And then the rogue panics and presses cloak and gives us another slow zone. But besides that, we actually managed to recover from the 2 slow zones. Another thing is, throughout the fight, I was constantly having to heal myself. I was doing around 35k HPS, which is quite a lot for me. It's not normally that high. And then moving on to the next part of the fight, we get another set of dispels. Mind you, we agreed that I'd be the first dispel if I did get it, so I quickly move myself into the zone and the monk follows me. 3 seconds go by, still no dispel, and then he dispels himself first, and with the tick of the debuff and that damage going out, I end up dying. And then he dies because my one goes off straight away. But who knows, maybe I should have predicted the late dispel and instantly topped myself with a healing surge in 0.2 seconds before the tick went off. Because it is full and the timer is pretty free, we run it back again as we have lust, but it ends up going up like this. And we wipe, and that is the end of the fall saga for this week. Now onto the last key, and you'll be happy it's not a fall. It is in fact a 27 Everbloom, and this place on Tyrannical is pretty fecking spicy. A few moments into this key had me sweating for sure with the damage going out. Standard first pull there with Bloodlust and the Boomy and DH doing their mass AoE things, and then us slowly trying to catch up to them. We pull first boss with the Lashes and it goes down with ease, and then after that we do a little Mind Soothe skip tech and we do some careful parkour in the jungle to sneak past. So we managed to get our Bloodlust on the council boss fight and not have to waste time killing trash. This boss is really dangerous with casts, and I definitely recommend some form of kick orders in your party, as you do not want a Revitalize or especially a Toxic Bloom going off. So we had the DH on the Bloom, and then I was on the Revitalize because I got a range kick. So just Early on in the fight, I end up sending a couple of interrupts in the active target, and then once Gola is about to come active, I end up just saving my kick just for the revitalize. And we end up killing Council, and your boy was cranking. We move on to the caster area, and we blast through this pretty easily. Having a prop paladin here, just chugging out silences like there's no tomorrow with his shield, is super handy. It makes this area feel so much safer. We do end up having a pretty sketchy fight with the Archmage though, and we do end up having a few deaths. I really had to be on point with my defensive usage on this fight. I'm definitely starting to feel the lack of verse and defensive trinkets on my shaman. I need to get that Ferrat trinket from the strength users. I need it. We end up losing the healer to the flame and arcane combo first. Gets his feet swept straight towards a fire pool, and at this key level, a little tiny touch of your skin means instant death 99% of the time. And we get one of the worst ice combos I have ever seen in all of my dungeon runs. It's like a double spread, and there's like a slight tiny gap with the arcane. And I think because the druid was kind of close, we just didn't have the time to get out because it ends up hitting all of us other than the tank. We were all pretty surprised. Thankfully though, as we had a pretty smooth dungeon, we had plenty of CRs, and I also had reincarn, so you all get rezzed up and we do finish the boss. But now we have to play extremely clean on the last boss as we don't have any CRs. Timer wise, we're looking good, and we have Lust, so it should be doable. There will be a lot of damage going out throughout the fight, but we've got this. We pull the boss, and you know how he does a frontal instantly? Well, we have a classic case of DH brain coming right here. Honestly though, mistakes happen, and the key was really clean beforehand. So was I tilted? Not really, as with the 4 keys earlier in the week, I was untiltable now. I did ask for a reset, or kind of like a go again, but guys said no time, and I saw the DH type out just slam, so I ended up just sending Bloodlust, but I think the priest had already given up and stopped healing, and he flopped just before I pressed Bloodlust, and I didn't check my frames. Would have been a deplete either way, but was just a panicked send lust kind of moment. That does sum up the week, and we end on 3-4-13, so only 4 more points than last week. At least we had at least one time key this episode. And I know this week was mostly depletes, but I did say there was going to be highs and a lot of lows. Let me know what you thought on the episode, and please do leave a like if you enjoyed it. And if you did enjoy my suffering on top of that, then subscribe, as there's going to be plenty more suffering. Thanks for watching, and shout out to the Patreon legends. Your support is very much appreciated. Have a great day, everyone.